So the first time I ever arrived here was 4 years ago. Got dropped off in a van, parked just there, and carried all of my belongings down the hill. I went and lived on a 26-foot horrible boat, but at the time I thought it was the best thing in the world. And you might have seen the little flashback video where I'm actually on that boat, and it briefly shows the inside of it. Obviously, if you watched this before, you know what I'm like with phones, etc. So my life in pictures just ends up in the bottom of the sea. I really should do better at backing it up, but it's lost, can't do much about it now. But yeah, parked up there, and I just remember when I first came to look at that boat, I weren't that bothered about the boat. I just arrived here and was like, wow, it's like so nice. I used to just take my little spear gun and mess around in this little part down here. It's quite popular for people to come jump off there, but it's also it's really dangerous, and there's been actually quite a lot of fatalities. You wouldn't catch me jumping off that into there, no way. I don't like it. I've done it before when I was in the Ardèche, and there's a place, I'll attach the name if I can remember. I went once, climbed all the way to the top of the biggest one where everyone was jumping off, and I just couldn't do it, and everyone was like, go on, go on, go on, and I had to go back down. And then a couple of weeks passed and I felt defeated by it, and I had to go back and do it. But yeah, I don't enjoy it. It seems like just a really unnecessary risk. I get why people enjoy it, but for me, yeah, you know, you can be sure, but all it takes is to land funny. And I guess sailing can be quite dangerous too, but that's just instant danger in it, jumping off something into the water. And I think I'm not too keen on heights, so yeah, it's not for me. So in the summer, and when I actually first arrived here, I was on a mooring buoy, just the one closest to the wall over there. And yeah, you tie up on either end, and because it's a channel, the boats can't be turning as you traditionally would if you get like a mooring buoy. So you actually tie on two ends. So if the swell's coming in from the south, it's not very comfortable. However, being out, it's, you know, you are protected a lot of the time. Even when it's coming from the south, it doesn't really get big waves that far in. You get a bit of roll, but as you can see, it's almost like a door. And actually, the boat that's down there's, well, two of them stay on the mooring buoy even now. So if you had that mooring buoy there next to the spooky place where we went searching for boat treasures, or might be in the upcoming episode, that wouldn't be a bad little place to be. But obviously, I don't know, you know, I almost don't know if you'd be more comfortable there, because yeah, you're gonna be a bit rolly, but I end up a bit rolly where I am inside anyway, and I end up rolly, I'm banging off of a boat. So as well, when it's well, just when it's not winter, so spring, summer and autumn, the army do quite a lot of training here, so you see them kayaking through there and jumping off things and doing little obstacle courses, so yeah. So the decision to stay there was actually made before the boat broke. The boat actually broke on the way back from dropping off the crew, so basically like on the final trip I was going to have to do before then, staying there for a few months during the winter. I didn't plan on staying there as long as it's probably ended up, but the decision was made to stay there. So let's run through firstly the downsides of staying there, and then we'll get on to why it was a good place to stay. So firstly, there's no shore power. None at all. No shore power whatsoever. As you can see by this bit of footage along the pontoon, plugs in that port don't exist. But I'll get on to why that's not necessarily such a big problem when I get on to the reasons I decided to stay. But yeah, number one, no shore power. I ain't afraid of no ghosts, but maybe a little bit. Yeah, it's spooky. I was telling someone just the other day that if I've been to the shower block on a night time and I've had a glass or two of wine, and I've got to walk back to the boat in the absolute darkness, it's not so bad. But I remember when I was there before, it was quite spooky on a night time, and if I've not had a few glasses of wine and I'm walking back from the shower block, I can't even see where I'm going half the time. And I put the torch on the phone sometimes, but then that just lights up all the eerie darkness on the side. So yeah, it's spooky. But I mean, I'm 6'4". It's not ghosts I'm scared of. There's actually, and this is, people aren't going to believe me, but there's sightings of wolves there, and I was asking the guy from the captainry, the harbour master, I guess, if you're watching from somewhere not in France. In France it's the captain, was telling me that there's been, yeah, quite a few sightings of wolves, and it is true. I've asked a few other people, wolves do exist there, so the chance of a wolf coming onto my boat, fairly slim. I'm probably more scared of the octopus coming on my boat in the night time, because that would actually be terrifying. But yeah, it's just a bit spooky on a night time, you can't see. So that's number two. Number three, it's literally in the middle of nowhere. You know, it's a 30-minute walk into Cassis, which should be some footage of that showing now, but yeah, it's 30 minutes walk to there, and obviously there's no shops around, so anything I need to get as much as I can when I go to the shop. But it ends up, and I know what I'm like, I end up just going to do that 30-40 minute walk, and while I had a bad knee, it was a lot more than a 40-minute walk to and from the shop every day. Another part of it being in the middle of nowhere is it's quite difficult to then, you know, on an evening go try socialise. When you're in a place and you don't know anyone, I'm kind of beyond now. I did it quite a lot last winter of trying to go to like bars, pubs, whatever, and try and like meet people, but you know, when you spend such a long time on your own, you do kind of want to do that sort of stuff, so I knew that was going to be very difficult to do from there. Number four, again, kind of going back to the fact it's in the middle of nowhere, it's also that what that also means is work is quite difficult to find, whether it be like little bits of casual work. I know last winter in and around Cannes, etc., there's often like odd bits of day work, and I don't mean day work in the yachting term, I mean day work like odd days of work doing some gardening or something, comes up quite regularly, whereas over here I knew that it's not going to be as much, and even if it was going to have come up, it would likely be in Marseille, which is like 40 minutes on the bus, but the bus times etc aren't that often, and actually then getting back into Cassis and doing the walk back with the wolves and the boars, it's not ideal. But yeah, I just knew there weren't going to be that much in terms of like work, odd days work where I could go and earn a little bit of extra money. Number 5, cost. So I'm actually filming this in real time, so I'm trying to keep the points as they were when I was making the decision back in October of 2023, rather than the things that happened since. So at the time, it's quite simple. Ports cost money and anchoring is free. And with the way the landscape and the sea state etc is down there, I'm not sure this is factual, but I did find that actually the sea state, quite a lot of the time over by Cannes and Antibes, there's quite a few places you can tuck in behind an anchor, whereas here you're going to struggle to do that when the wind is coming from the south. The little part I showed you earlier in the video where I originally was on the mooring buoy, you're not allowed to anchor in any of them places, so the mooring buoys cost money, and actually in the winter you can't really use them mooring, well, you could use them mooring buoys in the port, but the price difference between being on one of them mooring buoys and actually being in the port, they're not worlds apart anyway. So yeah, cost. It's not like some of last winter where I could pick and choose whether I was in or out of the port. If I was in the port, I was in the port, and yeah, obviously things have happened since then, and we'll get onto that later in the video, but at the time I had to consider the fact that I was committing to what would be a cost, and at the time financially, and the biggest reason behind most of this was I didn't have any money left. So that's number 5. Number 6, and the biggest of all of the cons, it meant not moving forward. So if you've watched this channel before, there's been quite a lot of times already where I'm just not moving, and I've probably been a little impatient in the past when I should have just stayed somewhere for a bit. But I know for me it was the fact that I wasn't going anywhere, and again this goes back to the initial decision making at the time. I knew it was going to be quite tough knowing that I'm not moving on. Like, obviously the plan was to go over to the Balearic Islands for the winter, and this meant no progress. But I'll get onto that again in the reasons I decided to stay, why that wasn't the most important thing after all. Alright, a little risk here, but before we move on to the reasons why I ended up staying, just a quick risk, as I say. If you're enjoying the video, if you could hit the thumbs up for me. And I hate to say that, and I've always tried to like not be like that, and I try to keep these videos as real as possible, but I think sometimes what that does is, because I'm not doing the clickbait and everything else, it's not necessary, I'm not trying to fit into an algorithm. However, if you've got this far in the video, I'm very grateful you've watched that much of the video. And I will say that that intro on the video was made possible by the people who support me on Patreon and stuff, because I haven't miraculously bought a drone. It is something that I'm probably going to do because I think it would open up like a lot of good footage. But no, that comes from like an Adobe subscription, and now in real time that I'm actually doing some work, it means the people who have supported through Coffee and Patreon, I've been able to use that money to put a little bit back into the channel, so thanks for that. And the bog standard way of doing is to say thanks at the end of the video, but to me, that's when everyone's clicked off, and that thanks to people who've supported this channel is like super important, because without them, and by supported I mean like all aspects of it, I mean the people who have financially supported, the people who have commented, the people who have watched the videos, the people who are still here after a bunch of rubbish videos, like I'm super grateful for it all. But yeah, just a little bit of a risk putting that in the middle of the video, but if you are enjoying it and you could hit the thumbs up. I used to watch these YouTube videos, people sailing, and think, why? But like, it honestly, it just gets the videos to more people, so I'd be really grateful. Thanks. Don't fall off. Alright, so why did we decide to stay? So we've gone through the cons. So the first thing I'll do is I'll go through some of them cons, and I'll let you know why they weren't as important as maybe they could have been. So the first one, before I get onto them, is finances. I didn't at the time have any money that I could have gone to any other port anywhere and gone, I need to put my boat in here. The boat insurance was due, so I was going to have to pay that again. It's not that expensive, boat insurance, maybe about 150 euros give or take, but it was going to be a cost there and then. Also, no other port is going to let me go in and not pay up front, but that one at the time, the guy told me about the weather that was bad that was coming up and said we'll work something out. I can't say too much about the cost because obviously at the minute the boat's still in that port and I don't want to cause a problem. Just can't say much about it now, but I will in later videos get onto that. But yeah, cost wise there was no way I could go to another port because I didn't have the upfront money to pay to put the boat there. So that's that's probably the most important thing at that time, was I didn't really have any money to go put the boat somewhere else. Shore power, which we mentioned, okay, so I couldn't plug the boat in. What that meant was doing any projects on the boat was going to be quite hard during the winter without shore power. However, actually living on the boat, the winter before, I'd spent probably too much money on things for shore power. So I bought like a new hull fitting to plug the boat in. That involved buying a new plug and wiring, etc. I spent plug sockets on the inside of the boat. I'd spent quite a bit of money on shore power last winter to then actually go spend quite a lot of time out at anchor. And the thing with not having shore power there, it kind of adds to the charm of the place. You don't have like all the posh boats in there. There's not many people living there because they can't plug the boat in. So although it was a bit of a con, it also kind of was a bit of a good thing at the same time. It being spooky, yeah, it's spooky, but I can't do all about that. The not moving forwards aspect of it, okay, I mentioned when I said that before that if I go back to last winter and the summer, and the reason the boat's broke now, it's my impatience to just stay for a bit, because I always get this sense of like I'm doing something when I'm moving forwards, sailing, and because I'm making a YouTube channel as well, I feel like I should be sailing, but sitting down and thinking about it, I had to do what was the best thing to do. And to be honest, and this comes from afterwards, having a bit of a break from the stresses, if you like, of being out at anchor all the time actually probably was quite a good thing. And you know, it's 16 months I've been at this now in total, and it's been being in a place, then having to go, then being in another place, then having to go on, and having to survive in a place. So I was going to have to survive here because, as I've said, money wise there weren't much, but there's a bit of a difference between, you know, being in a port and being tied up and being safe, which is why this episode is titled Safe and Sound, to then being out at anchor worrying about all the stuff that goes with that. And in doing that, you then get other problems as well. So yeah, the weather was going to be really bad, it just made sense to just stay put. And because of the cost factor, if it had been anywhere else, I probably would have had to go be at anchor, but it was an opportunity that it just made sense. Going on to some of the other advantages of staying there, firstly, like nature. The place is beautiful. Like, how I envisioned it at the time when I was going to be there was kayaking, going on walks, etc. You know, things happened and that didn't really turn out to be the case. I did envision, you know, that I'd find a way to fix the boat, and coming up in future episodes there'll be a bit more about that. But the place itself, I'd looked forward to getting back there, and it made a lot of sense to stay. And one of the biggest ones, and I do have to say a huge thank you, because I think some of them will watch, the people in that port are like really friendly, and that might just be fairly normal to in a lot of places, but you know, I'd been to Cannes, Antibes, Saint Raphael, and just felt really unwelcome. Like the south of France, it's based around the yachting industry, and when you're just there on your little boat and you're going in, quite a lot of the time they don't really want you there. Nobody comes to meet you, and this is the complete opposite to that. Like, the people, because I was there before, they were really welcoming when I got there. You know, in the upcoming episodes too, you'll see me, the guy, the captain of the port, you know, he spends quite a bit of time with me. And a concern that I know loads of people had when I was going to be there, like, you won't see anyone because it's in the middle of nowhere. But actually, you know, while I'm there, there's not a day goes past where I'm not saying hi to someone, whether it be whoever's working in the port. I'm asked how I am and stuff, and if bad weather's coming, they'll let me know. And it's, yeah, if there was a port, and this is where we'll summarise this video, that felt like a home port, it's probably that one. So originally this episode was going to be titled Home is Where the Boat Is, but I changed it. But yeah, because in theory home is where the boat is, because the boat's my home. But it being there where it felt welcoming above all else was probably the main reason I decided to stay. So on that note, that brings us to the end of this episode. So thanks for watching, and in the next few episodes there's going to be a bit more about my time there and how that 3 months actually worked out while I was there. And then also, if you've been watching this episode wondering why you're seeing like trees and caravans, it's because I'm actually working now in real time. Some of you will know that already. That's so that I can earn a bit of money, because otherwise, without doing that, we was probably kind of at the end of as far as we could go. We could have probably carried on surviving, but that wouldn't have meant moving forward. So I've come to earn a bit of money in order to be able to keep going forwards. So yeah, all of that stuff's going to be in the upcoming episodes. Thanks for watching this one. A big thank you to everyone who's supported on Ko-fi and Patreon, and a big thank you to everyone who's commented, liked, shared the videos too. And I'll see you next time.